Imagine you're kidnapped and locked up in a room. Your kidnapper then tells you that the only way out of this captivity is to fall in love with him. This is Hippopotamus from 2018. The movie begins with a beautiful young woman waking up in a dimly lit basement. The woman doesn't remember how she got there and doesn't even remember her name or true identity. And to her shock, she has some head injury and has both of her legs broken, making her unable to walk. Shortly, a man enters the room and introduces himself as Tom, her kidnapper. He then proceeds to tell the woman that her name is Ruby. He continues on to give out more details about her and her life. Tom reveals that Ruby is a 25-year-old law student and is the only child in her family. Tom then reveals that he loves her and that his intention behind kidnapping Ruby is to keep her captive until she falls in love with him. With this troubling revelation, Tom lays out some house rules for Ruby's captivation. The rules are that she will get fed 3 times a day. She will get her painkillers and birth control on a routine basis. Moreover, he will help her clean herself every 2 days. Tom insists it's because of her injuries, and not because of his pervert desires. The lights in the basement will turn on at 7 a.m. and will turn off at 11 p.m. He further reveals that they are hidden 10 miles away from the nearest town, so shouting or running for help won't do Ruby any favor. Confronted by this weird situation she's in, Ruby gets confused and is afraid about her future. She also notices a bracelet on her arm, which has her name printed on it. However, she still fails to recollect any of her memories. When Tom offers her usual pills, Ruby refuses to take them. Tom insists that the pills are for her health, and not taking them will only hurt herself. Moreover, he insists that the purpose of the birth control is to stop her from menstruating, so that she is hygienic and Tom won't have to help her clean her privates. Tom avoids giving Ruby any more information and sort of leaves her to figure everything else out by herself. One day when he leaves Ruby, he unknowingly leaves a purse on a chair. Finding herself alone, Ruby decides to take a look at the purse. With her broken legs, Ruby drags herself towards the chair and gets the purse. She takes a look inside and finds a driver's license with her name and picture, and a tennis ball. Just then, she hears Tom approaching, so she hurriedly puts the purse back in its place and drags herself back to her original position. She also hides the tennis ball, which she wasn't able to put back, in the purse. When Tom gets there, he doesn't suspect anything, and Ruby is saved. Tom then sternly warns Ruby not to move, stating that she's very weak and too much movement could halt her recovery. Despite Tom's warning, Ruby continues on to ask him about herself and her past, but Tom doesn't reveal too much and only states that she has to fall in love with her if she ever wants to get out of the basement. Ruby finds herself in a dilemma. How can she fall in love with her own kidnapper, all the while she has no recollection of who she really is? Ruby then asks a very sensible question. She asks if Tom hated her before kidnapping her and bringing her into the basement. Hearing this question, Tom visibly gets upset and leaves the room before he could no longer control his anger. Despite this unusual behavior from Tom, he continues on to help Ruby to heal her legs and clean herself. Then one day, while Ruby is left alone in her room, she goes through the purse once again. She finds a small pocket mirror and starts comparing her face to the photo on the driver's license. She tries to figure out if the person in the driver's license is really her or not. But unknown to her, Tom was secretly watching her, keeping an eye on each of her moves. In frustration, Ruby breaks the mirror, and before Tom could come back in the room, she manages to hide a shard of glass in her bandage, planning to use it later just in case. More and more time passes by in the basement. Nothing really changes. Tom keeps the place clean and tidy for Ruby, who finds each of her days to be repetitive, without managing to get any of her memory back. During a conversation, Ruby calmly asks Tom what would happen if she doesn't fall in love with him. She explains that love doesn't really work like that, and clarifies there needs to be something to spark that love between two people. Tom doesn't answer the question directly, but promises to bring her anything she wanted to keep her happy. Taking advantage of the situation, Ruby quickly asks for a blanket, pillow, and a book. When Ruby receives the book, she gets a feeling that she has already read the book before. Tom then mentions that it was her favorite book and proudly boasts that she had prepared for the kidnapping while taking everything into consideration and didn't leave her favorite book behind. He then proceeds to bring her favorite red tea, something she really used to love in the past. Upon engaging with these things, Ruby starts to get flashes of her memory back, giving her some hope that she might remember everything in a few days. While reading the book, Ruby discovers something strange. She finds hidden coded clues in the book. When she uses the glass she had hidden from Tom, she finds that the messages read, "Never trust it." Ruby senses that she wasn't the only girl Tom had kidnapped. She suspects that Tom had kidnapped other girls before, who had left hidden codes to his next victims. Ruby, however, doesn't bring it up to Tom. One night during dinner, Ruby casually asks him if he had kidnapped other girls before him. Tom denies having other girls before Ruby and clarifies she's the only one for him. However, the next day, Ruby finds a hidden cache in the wall, where she finds stacks of cash and a pile of used matchsticks, which were possibly used to write the hidden code messages in the book. As everything starts to seem more suspicious, Ruby plans to play it cool. During her next dinner with Tom, Ruby apologizes for questioning if Tom had kidnapped other girls before her. She then asks him to light up a candle, suggesting it creates more of a romantic atmosphere for their dinner. During the dinner, she recounts a dream she had a few nights earlier. In the dream, she saw herself sinking deeper underwater, at the verge of dying, before someone pulled her up and saved her life. As Tom pays complete attention to Ruby's narration of her dream, Ruby quietly manages to steal the burnt matchstick. When Ruby is left to be alone, she removes the bandages from her legs and sees that the injury to her legs were completely gone. She bravely takes her first few steps in aim of gaining complete mobility before Tom finds out about it. During all this, she gets a strange vision of a man injecting her with something. Ruby has no clue whether it's a dream or a past memory. Ruby then spends her night desperately trying to decipher the remaining hidden clues and working out to increase her physical strength, all while pretending she hasn't recovered from her injury. Ruby remained patient and waited for the perfect opportunity to escape from Tom's captivity. One day, Tom prepares a special meal for her. The taste instantly sparks a vivid memory of Ruby dining at a restaurant with a man and enjoying his company. Tom then says that the man she sees in her memory is in fact him. He reveals that they used to date and were extremely happy together. Ruby, however, doesn't trust him at all and is unsure if the memory is real or fabricated by Tom. One day, Ruby manages to peek through a small window near the ceiling. She realizes that she is truly kept in a remote location, miles away from the nearest town. Multiple days go by, and Ruby still hasn't found the perfect time to act out her escape plan. But then, one day, Tom falls asleep in her room. Ruby seizes this opportunity and tries to leave the basement. But before she could move any further, Tom wakes and confronts her. If she was trying to escape, Ruby quickly lies that she was bored and only wanted to peek outside to see what was beyond her room. Her quick thinking bought her more time, but the clock was ticking as she awaited her chance to finally break free. Tom, on the other hand, senses Ruby wants to be romantic. So he turns on some music and invites Ruby to slow dance with him. As they begin to dance, Ruby gets flashbacks of dancing with her boyfriend in the past. She remembers the time when they confessed their love for each other. Despite this, she still can't remember who her boyfriend is. She gets more confused, wondering if Tom was really her boyfriend, or if he's lying about the entire thing to get her. To gain Ruby's trust, Tom hands her a remote, through which Ruby can control the lights and music in her room. Ruby then decides to play along and dances with him, trying not to let him suspect anything. But once again, Ruby starts getting flashes of her memory back. This time, Tom tries to help her piece out her memory together. Ruby recalls sitting at a bar with a friend one evening. She remembers that her friend had asked her why they hadn't been intimate for a long time. Ruby brushes off the topic and cracks a joke to break the weird atmosphere. Later that night, while intoxicated, Ruby walks home with her friend. On the way, Ruby recalls ignoring multiple calls from Tom. When Ruby reaches her home, her friend tries to advance on her, sexually, which is repeatedly ignored by Ruby. In the end, her friend forces himself on her. Around the same time, Tom, driven by a friend named Rob, arrives at Ruby's house. Upon seeing what was going on, Tom is enraged and acts out in anger. He kills Ruby's friend for assaulting her. He then realizes that the horrendous act had left Ruby with no memory of her life, due to the trauma and the severe assault she had to go through. Right there, Tom decides to take Ruby away. He convinces Rob not to involve the police and persuades him to drive them far north. Ruby, still semi-conscious and with no memory of the events, was taken by Tom to a remote island. There, Tom found an abandoned farm and decided to keep her in the basement. Tom's goal was to hide away from the police and to help Ruby get her memory back. After starting a new life on the island, Tom delved into research about Ruby's condition and discovered a troubling pattern. Tom found out that whenever Ruby slept for a long period of time, her memory would reset completely, which meant all the progress they made was gonna waste. Determined to help Ruby get her memory back, Tom decides to take control of her entire life and daily routine. Tom came up with a precise plan to manipulate Ruby's reality and make her go through a bit of a stressful situation to force her to get her memory back. He staged various scenarios to help Ruby get her memory back. He even acted out as a doctor before, which didn't work. This was his latest attempt to act as a kidnapper, which seems to have finally worked. Ruby regains what Tom claims to be her memories, and Tom is extremely satisfied and happy from the results. Ruby also seemed happy, and a passionate bond began to form between them in that very moment. However, as Tom and Ruby hug each other, Ruby decides to act. She grabs the shard of mirror she had kept hidden and attacks Tom. She manages to overpower him and escapes out of the basement. She is convinced that the memory she gained back is fabricated by Tom and isn't really hers. She still believes him to be a weird kidnapper. She escapes out of the basement and runs towards the river. However, as she has nowhere else to go, she faints in exhaustion and loses her consciousness. In her unconscious state, Ruby dreams of slowly sinking underwater, where she is helpless and alone. When she wakes up, she finds herself in the same basement, but now Tom has made it look like a hospital bed and he himself starts to act like a doctor. Ruby, once again, has no recollection of who she is and what had happened previously. She believes Tom to be a doctor, who claims that the operation was successful. And with that, the movie ends. The movie's ending is a bit ambiguous. My theory is that Tom never truly knew Ruby before the kidnapping, but crafted false memories to manipulate her into believing they had a connection. The ending suggests Ruby is trapped in an endless cycle of psychological control, with Tom resetting her reality to fit his delusions. Thank you for sticking with us to the end of this mind-bending thriller. If you enjoyed the recap, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Was Ruby's escape ever real, or was it just another part of Tom's game? Let us know what you think.